Hey everyone, what we're going to do today is a finesse jig. Happens to be a Poison Tal jig. It's a 1/4 ounce with a 1/0 Mustad 91 768 jig hook. Um, the color is different. It's a veined paint. It's called Green Double Trouble that I get from Barlow's Tackle. Um, this is some really nice stuff, and it's easy to work with. Some vein paints, you use them and the veins don't come out very well. You get really dark areas and light areas. This stuff is phenomenal. This is the green paint, and what we're going to do is a color. Um, it's basically watermelon magic craw, which is just 3 colors. We're going to use Magic Craw, which is watermelon with a blue tint. We're going to use Opaque Watermelon, which is just a plain watermelon. And we're going to use Watermelon Magic Craw Dalmatian, which has it's the watermelon blue tint with the black splotches on it. So let's get started with some Danville flat wax nylon thread, 210 denier in olive color. We'll get our base started. This Poison Tal works really good in a finesse type deal with the crop top skirt. It just is really nice the way it works in the water, and it could be used as a finesse swim jig as well. As you can see, it is weedless. There's a hole in there. I use 5/64 weed guard, which is an FG12, which is this real thin one. It's hard to tell, but it's not a heavier one. And it's simply just my choice because of where I'm going to fish this. So now we got our base on there. I'm going to take this opaque watermelon. I'm going to take the base color first. And I'm going to lay it right on top. Two wraps to secure it, and I'm going to work it around. I want it all the way around the jig head. This Poison Tal, like I said, is really nice, but the hardest part with it is distributing your material. See, it doesn't tend to work around as easy or it does as it does on other heads, and that's simply because of how large the collar, the ring is on it. It makes for a great flare, but it makes it tough to get your material distributed equally. Some heads you could just go like regular ring and barb collars. You could just use your fingers and it goes right around. Almost have no problems with it. With this, you work it around and you still get bare spots. So you have to take your time with it a little bit. It's a minor problem to put up with for how well the jig performs. So now I got that color on. The next one we're going to do is the watermelon magic craw, and this is just like I said, it's simply watermelon with a blue tint. I really like this color. I'm going on the last 4 seasons now. It's been really good. The last 3 have been, it's been my best color. We've used green pumpkin patterns, a lot of different colors, and when it comes to silicone and rubber jigs, this watermelon magic craw seems to work really, really well. I even tried green pumpkin blue, and it just didn't. Something with this. Okay, so now we got that color on. We're going to do our last one, which is the watermelon magic craw Dalmatian, and I'm going to put it on the front of the jig, the top of the jig, depending on how you want to look at it. And the reason I'm doing that instead of putting it on the back is I want to make sure that if I got more strands on the back, that this will sort of even it out a little bit. As I push it around, I might end up with more strands on the front. It's not a big deal, but if you alternate it like that, you won't get a lopsided jig, which is a lot of, that's an issue with a lot of people that are just learning how to tie. They'll end up with more material on one side than the other when they're using multiple colors. So we're going to do it. We're going to spread it out a little bit. And of course, you might have to take individual strands and move them, but it's a small price to pay, like I said, for how well this jig actually performs. It comes across the bottom really well. It swims really well. You could do everything with just one jig. So now we got it where I'm satisfied with the distribution of the material. So now I'm going to make my final wraps. Secure my collar. Don't have to get too carried away. Now we're going to whip finish. Four, 5, 6. And of course I hooked the material. I should have just drew it up here or used a bread tie, but I'm in a hurry here. And 6. Trim it up. Now I'm going to take some Loctite super glue brush on. And if this is the first video of mine you've seen, that you've actually watched, the reason for the super glue brush on is I like the super glue when I'm using silicone or rubber material, and I like the Sally Hansen's Hard as Nails clear nail polish when I use hair. And it just because when this dries, it won't leave a residue on the super glue won't leave a residue on the silicone, but it does on hair. And the Sally Hansen's will leave a white residue on the silicone, but it doesn't leave a residue on the hair. So that's why I interchange them back and forth. So now I'm going to cut my material, and for me, where I like the perfect top is just a little bit above that line tie is where I'm going to cut it. It seems to be pretty nice the way it performs. Actually, that's a little bit longer than what I wanted. It's a little too far in front, and that happens to me too. I'll go and cut, and I'll trim a little bit long, which that's how you want to do it. If you're going to trim it long and go from there. There you go. That's how I want it. Better long, you can always cut more off. If you're too short, you're kind of stuck with what you have. And again, behind here now, I'm going to want this about a half an inch to an inch. And we're done with that. It's a pretty good tie so far. And what I'll do is I'm going to throw that weed guard in for you, so you can kind of see what we have going on here. This works really well. And what I do for the weed guard is I glue it in with this. If I don't epoxy it, I'm gluing it in with the super glue gel. And the reason for the gel is if you got a tube of regular super glue and you put it in the hole here for the weed guard and put your weed guard in, it would wick up the fiber and it would get a nasty residue. It wouldn't be too good. So I learned from my mistake when I first started doing this. So now I use the gel control, and that weed guard is on there really nice. And the last thing is my trailer. I'm using this. This is a watermelon black Yum Woolly Hogtail. And what I do with this is I take these two tentacles off, I pinch them off. So now it's more like a beaver style bait. And the reason I use this instead of a regular beaver is this is a smaller profile. Um, I also take this top part with 3 ribs. I pinch that off. And now I line it up. And I have my trailer. Get the strands out of the way, and we'll be set. And there it is. It's not got a ton of trailer, nothing big, bulky. And you see how well that blends in. You can barely see it in there. That's just nice. That watermelon with a little bit of darker watermelon in the blue. Really nice pattern. The paint's really good. I really like working with this stuff so far. Give it a try. Let me know what you think. I'll leave a materials list in the comment section since somebody asked about that, which I think is a good idea. Anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think.